Cypress Fairbanks Independent School District presents PBIS 301 Advanced Techniques for Sustaining PBIS in Your Classroom, Part 1 of 2. Today we'll continue to talk about a behavior plan for your classroom. When students start to engage in persistent misbehavior or escalations, it's easy to fall back on traditional classroom management techniques, such as sending students out of the classroom, being sarcastic, or other quick fix approaches. When teachers begin to fall back on those traditional methods, a shift in focus occurs. Teachers become less proactive in reinforcing and often end up focusing on inappropriate behaviors. In these reactive systems, teachers and students are more likely to get caught up in conflict cycles that often lead to referrals, high anxiety, and frustration, not to mention fracturing the teacher student relationship. Being proactive and reinforcing positive behavior increases the likelihood students will demonstrate pro social behaviors and decrease the time needed for correction and time spent out of the classroom. Be more proactive. Spend a substantial amount of time setting students up for success in the classroom. Don't be afraid to reinforce the students for engaging in on-task and positive behaviors. We're now going to discuss strategies to help with each level of behavior. Teachers are responsible to address all Level 1 behaviors. These are low-level behaviors that can be addressed in the classroom with proactive strategies. Remember the upside down green triangle that you just saw, with proactive being the largest part of the plan? Being proactive is what we've been talking about all throughout PBIS 101 and 201. What should we be doing in our classroom to be proactive? Teaching rules and expectations, procedures, and social skills. But how? With plan teaching and preventative prompts. Yes, these should sound familiar as we discuss these in PBIS 101 and 201. You should have the knowledge of proactive prevention, but we'll quickly review. Remember, plan teaching has 4 steps. Step 1, introduce the skill with a hook or question. Step 2, describe the appropriate behavior. Just read the steps from the social skill poster. Step 3, introduce the skill with a concept that the students can relate to and connect to. Step 4, practice the skill. Often teachers skip this step, assuming students understood the concept, and then get frustrated when things don't work out. We also learned how to execute preventive prompts, quick reminders of expected behaviors right before the student is expected to execute the skill. The example was, as I ask the class review questions, be sure to raise your hand and wait to be called on. The goal is to cut down on redirection of off-task behaviors because you were preventive. Level 2 includes behaviors that have increased in frequency, intensity, or duration. Again, using corrective, proactive, preventive strategies is your best line of action. However, you might need to conference with the student and/or parent, depending on the behavior. Praise is the next proactive intervention from our green triangle. Praise as a preventive measure increases the likelihood of positive behavior. We spent quite a bit of time on how to use praise to pre-teach, reinforce, and redirect students. So let's quickly review the types of praise. There was general, quick, and used with students whose buckets are filled with minimal praise. Specific is adding the what to general praise. Effective is adding the why to specific praise and is effective with students who always ask why. Level 3 behaviors that teachers manage are not part of the automatic referral list, but have shown to have greater frequency, intensity, or duration. Again, we're always using corrective strategies, working to keep the student in the classroom where best first instruction takes place. There might be a classroom consequence, or you might have to contact your behavior coach or assistant principal. Correction is listed third as we work our way down our green triangle. Like any other strategy, choosing an effective corrective strategy requires understanding students and what motivates them. We'll discuss how to eliminate negative behaviors, calm the escalated student, and decrease continued misbehavior. To do this, we'll look at 4 corrective strategies that should be implemented sooner rather than later. We'll begin with empathy. Empathy validates and demonstrates concern for students' feelings. An example might sound like, Tracy, I know it can be hard to get your work done after lunch. Having empathy as a strong part of a school culture not only builds the teacher student relationship, but can also build relationships between students, reducing instances of bullying and conflict. I'd like to walk you through a scenario for empathy. Erica only completed half of her assignment. You tell her that the class policy is you only accept completed work. Use an empathy statement with Erica. What would you say? I'll pause a minute and give you time to come up with your empathy statement. Your response to Erica might sound something like this. Erica, I know it's not easy to hear that I only accept completed work. Why don't you take your assignment home, finish it, and turn it in tomorrow? The goal of empathy is the ability to recognize emotions in others and understand other people's perspective regarding a situation. The next corrective strategy is cool down. Cool down time provides a brief break for the student to regain self control before behaviors get big. This can be done in the learning environment by leaving the student at their desk or in a private space in the room. When suggesting cool down, give students 1. A time. Indicate an approximate time that you'll return to talk with the student so they don't use this time to avoid work. And secondly, a task. Suggest a specific task to help them cool down. This provides the student with something productive to focus on instead of how upset they are. Cool down time isn't only for the student. This is also a good time for adults to use their own self control strategy if they need to remove themselves from an escalating situation. This also is a great time to praise other students who are on task and staying out of the situation. Let's look at a cool down scenario. Cameron and his partner are trying to decide how to present information to the class. Cameron becomes frustrated with his partner and stomps off to his desk. You decide it's best to allow him to have cool down time. What would you say? I'll give you a minute to think of your response. Your response may sound something like, Cameron, I see you need a moment to yourself. Why don't you take a few deep breaths to relax while you sit here? I'll be back in a minute to see if you have figured it out or if you'd like my help. Evaluate Cameron from a distance to see that he has calmed down before you begin to go talk with him. If the student has not de escalated, there is no reason to go over and try to have a conversation. Our next corrective strategy is reality statement. Some students have learned by previous experience that certain behaviors, though inappropriate, get them what they want. By persisting in those behaviors, students find they can also frustrate adults. Providing students with reasons helps point out consequences they might not have considered and how more appropriate behaviors may be more effective for getting their needs met. Let's check out a reality statement scenario. While at nature trails, Rico wanders away from the group. You decide to use a reality statement with him. What would you say? I'll give you a minute to prepare your reality statement response. Your response may sound like, Rico, if you don't follow my instructions to stay with the class, you might miss out on all of the cool wildlife we'll get to see. Be sure to watch your adult behaviors when responding with a reality statement. You do not want to come across rude or disrespectful. The last corrective strategy we will look at is coupling statements. Coupling statements are where you pair a behaviorally specific description of the inappropriate behavior with a behaviorally specific description of the alternative appropriate behavior. A good example is, "You're writing on your desk, please put the pencil down." A non-example might sound like, "You're writing on your desk, please listen to the lesson." The problem with this example is that these are not mutually exclusive. A student can write on their desk and listen to the lesson at the same time, where a student cannot write on the desk if they have to put their pencil down. Exclusivity is the key to a successful coupling statement. Let's look at the formula for creating a good coupling statement. Using our previous example, "You're writing on the desk, please put your pencil down." The dib, describe inappropriate behavior, was, "You're writing on your desk." The transition statement is where you link the two behaviors, the dib and the dab, with a request. In our example, the transition statement was, "Please." You can use any transition statement, such as, "A better choice might be," "You might try," "Instead," "It would be better if." The dab, describe appropriate behavior, was, "Put your pencil down." The appropriate behavior often is just the opposite of what they're doing. Another example of a coupling statement might sound like, "You're running, please walk." Or, "Your voice level is at level 4. It would be better if it were at level 2. An important function of a coupling statement is that it keeps the focus on observing and describing behavior and prevents emotional reactions. Let's evaluate a coupling scenario. Carlos is distracted from the lesson because he's fiddling with a toy at his desk. You decide to use a coupling statement. What would you say? I'll give you a minute to compose your coupling statement. You might say, "Carlos, you're playing with a toy. It would be best if you put the toy in your backpack." Remember, the key to a successful coupling statement is the exclusivity of the dib and the dab. So let's review. To be proactive with level 1 behaviors, be sure to use planned teaching and preventive prompts when teaching rules and expectations, procedures, social skills, and consequences. Recognize that praise is a huge part of being preventive. Practice using general, specific, and effective praise to pre-teach, reinforce, and redirect your students. When correcting students with negative behaviors, you have several strategies to choose from: empathy, cool down, reality statements, and coupling statements. You, as the teacher, will need to determine which strategy will work best for the individual student you're working with. In summary, you now have learned many strategies to help you be proactive with student behaviors in your classroom. Start with one or two and have a goal to implement them all during the school year. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you continue on to PBIS 301, Advanced Techniques for Sustaining PBIS on Your Campus, Part 2 of 2.